most important thing. But if you click on the little smiley face that says react, there are 5 different little emojis. Just for fun, why doesn't everybody click on the applause one? Just to see what happens, just so you can see how this works. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. Oh, I love to start my day like that. Thank you. Yes, yeah. So feel free to liberally use those reaction emojis. Show me that you're engaging. Show me that you're interested in what's happening. Hello, good morning. We will be doing some polls. When we do launch the polls, they will either show up in front of you or they'll be over in the chat. If they don't show up right in front of you, you simply click your response, click submit vote. They're totally anonymous, and but everybody can see the responses in the polls. And yeah, if you haven't done so yet, go ahead, open up that chat by clicking the little speech bubble. That's how you can communicate back to me. Feel free to drop anything in that chat. What's really cool about Teams compared to other meeting platforms is there are like animated emojis. There's little, they call them stickers, but they're really fillable memes. And there are really fun GIFs. So feel free to liberally use those features appropriately, obviously. But yeah, here's a good one. Couple of accessibility features. If you are interested, you can turn on live captions in Teams. And what it will do is whatever I say, it'll just populate subtitles at the bottom of the PowerPoint slide. And it's actually pretty good, the Teams functionality. Like even if I'm like, kablow, it'll write K-A-B-L-O-W exclamation mark. Like it knows how to do that stuff that, what do you call that? Onomatopoeia. Oh yeah. Who remembers onomatopoeia from high school English, huh? You can also take your Teams meeting all the way to full screen. To do that, you'll click on View. All the way at the bottom, you'll click on More Options, and then you click on Full Screen. So that'll just sort of bleed it over the Start menu. And if you are not in here via the Teams app, if you're in here via a browser, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but if you push F11, that toggles all the operating features on and off. So that'll get rid of the address bar and the back button and everything if you want to just be fully immersed in here, which is what I would suggest you do because other programs will cause lag with your team. So I suggest you close any other open apps or programs, especially internet-related ones. And whatever you can do to make sure your internet speed is as quick as possible, suggest you do that. Okay, so the goals of a safety connection are to make sure we learn and share together. So everyone in here, connecting, you can all connect via the chat. I want to try to make this a bit of a facilitation, a bit of a back and forth and less of a lecture. So yeah, you got best practices, you got ideas to share, go ahead, throw them in the chat, drop them in there for everybody else to learn from. And of course, you're all able to attend from your own personal workspace. So this is Brick by Brick, how to implement a sustainable health and safety program. My name is Drew Douglas. I'm coming at you live from the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, which is where I kind of came up as a health and safety professional before coming to WSPS for the last 3 years almost now. Training is my favorite part of health and safety, and I've got to do that pretty well exclusively since I came to WSPS, but I have lots of background with putting programs in place. What else? I'm married to my high school sweetheart. I got 2 teenage sons. I got a 10-year-old daughter. I'm a health and safety geek too. I'm often pointing out health and safety issues to my family while my kids roll their eyes. That's sort of where you might find me if I'm at Walmart or whatever. But let's get to our first poll and see how this polling feature works. So in a moment, a poll will pop up right in front of you, or it'll show up over in the chat. And just a quick question about the last health and safety program you implemented or assisted with. Did you have no problems at all? Did you have a few issues? Is it still facing difficulty? Had many challenges or failed? And if you're unable to participate in the poll, I apologize for that. There is a tech issue with Teams where not everyone can participate for whatever reason. And if you really want to, yeah, you can throw an answer into the chat. But yeah, let's have a look here. So we got a few people, no problems, going strong. The majority, almost half, saying fixed over time. Still facing difficulties, a few. One person, many challenges or failed. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so I want to clarify what I mean by program, right? Because we're going to be saying that throughout this training. And I'm really talking about the specific programs, like your first aid program, your, onboarding program, your heat stress program, your, manual material handling program. I'm thinking of each of those sort of individual programs, not the overarching health and safety program, right? I feel like safety people, we got a big sort of issue with that in terms of policy, program, procedure. I feel like we all use those interchangeably, whether you're a professional or not. We really need to get on the same page with that, right? Anyways, throughout the training, I've got some, what I'm going to call discussion bricks. So whenever you see a gold brick come up on the slide, it's kind of a question to you to throw some thoughts into the chat. So what do you not like about implementation? What gives you the most grief in regard to implementing a new program? Or revising a program and implementing that revised program. I'd like you to throw some thoughts in the chat. Yeah, thank you, Chris. Resistance from old timers, quote unquote. Pushback from employees. Yeah, interesting. So we got kind of the veterans having that resistance pushback. Just anybody on the shop floor having pushback. Sure. Other managers pushing back. Interesting. Yeah, we're going to talk about all of this stuff. Engagement, unwillingness to participate in training. Ooh. We'll talk about that. Resource constraints. Yeah, we've always done it this way mentality. I'm sure safety people, we're all familiar with that, right? Unrealistic deadlines set by management. Getting buy-in all around. Nice one, Mahesh. Yeah, we're going to talk about that for sure. I'm curious, how many people in here are safety practitioners? Like that is your main role, is doing health and safety. Throw a 1 in the chat. Drop a number 1 into the chat if that is your main sort of role. Let's see how many ones we got dropping in. Ooh, look at them all streaming in. Very cool, very cool. Kindred spirits, all of us, I'm sure. So we all speak the same language, right? All right, so why does implementation fail? Let's imagine you're building a dream home. You pour the footings, you're excited about the future, but then everything grinds to a halt, right? Some sort of challenges show up, a labor shortage, a material shortage. It kills your whole plans. Your footings lie there in your excavation. Nothing further happens. This is where we're going to start our story, not with the walls coming up or the roof going on, but right here, the reality of stalled progress. Many of the best sort of housing blueprints can end up this way, right? So what is that really? A lack of preparation. Let's talk about that. Well, let's imagine somehow you get that stuff together and you build on. But you have material quality issues, or you have, skilled trade competency questions. Even if you have $1 million blueprint, your house could turn out like this, right? Lack of confidence. Maybe you don't even look at the house as it's being built. There's no oversight as the construction takes place, and you end up with a home that's not structurally sound, or it didn't align with your original vision. The builder deviated from the plans because they had to put a post here and you wanted an open concept living room or something like that, right? So the finished project doesn't match what you intended, what you wanted, right? Lack of oversight. So now you're not happy with the home you end up building, right? So those are sort of 3 key areas that I'm going to talk about today. So I asked you what you didn't like about implementation. Now I want to change the question just a bit. It might be similar answers, but what do you think is the hardest thing about implementation? Is it the same as what you don't like? Or is it different? What's your biggest challenge when it comes to putting a program in place? Go ahead, throw that in the chat for me. Okay, hopefully I don't have a lag on my chat here. Here we go. Getting someone on your side to start it. Sure, yeah, I'll talk about that. Champions. Collecting information required across divisions so that everyone can prepare. Yeah. Ooh, scope creep. Interesting. Yeah, that can easily happen, right? Getting others on board from the get-go. I love it, Melissa. Getting managers more about that buy-in, that engagement piece. Sure. Yeah, we'll talk about all of that, right? Similar, I think, perhaps to what you don't like, but sometimes it's different, right? Sometimes what you don't like is an easy thing, and a challenge is sometimes what you like is a challenge too, perhaps, right? Maybe you like trying to get that buy-in, trying to get that engagement, right? Yeah, nice one. Consistency, Jennifer. So especially when you have a larger organization or you have multiple departments that have very different tasks and equipment and work ethic, let's say. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Balancing management expectations with effective implementation. So people understand why we're doing this. Yeah, that's another great one, Ira. Thank you for sharing, everybody. So really what I want to suggest to you is that implementation success is built on 3 bricks: preparation, competence, oversight. And that's going to be the sort of the focus of what we're going to go through this morning: preparation, competence, oversight. So I'm going to use this sort of house building metaphor to take you through this entire safety connection. Okay. When I'm talking about preparation, I'm really talking about making sure we have a proper blueprint in place. And by blueprint, I mean written program. Okay. And then I'm going to talk about competence, so making sure all the trades, all the people that are helping to build the home are fully trained. They're fully competent to be able to do that building. Right? So all the champions that are going to be affected by a written program are able to do their part, whatever their responsibilities may be. And then we're going to talk about oversight, so starting the build, celebrating that build, but then monitoring the construction while the build takes place. So that's sort of the kind of the metaphor as we go through this story arc for this. And of course, as you saw in the write-up, we are going to apply it directly to an incident investigation program. So whether you're here just to learn about implementation in general, or whether you're here to learn about incident investigation specifically, you're going to get something out of this morning. Ready? So let's jump into preparation or reviewing the blueprints. 3 things I want to talk about. First of all, establishing a good, solid, customized blueprint, sharing that blueprint with any and all involved trades, and then inviting feedback on any challenges and or solutions related to that blueprint. Let's jump into each of those. So, customized blueprint first. Really 2 different options. Well, 3, I guess. 1, you can do it yourself. Do your own research, write your own program. 2, you can enroll in our Health and Safety Excellence program. And 3, you can buy a customized building block from us. And we'll talk about each of those. First of all, research and write. Before we get into that, though, one more quick poll. How many programs have you written and or modified? And again, if you're unable to participate in the poll, feel free to throw it in the chat. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that feedback. Yeah. Looking like a third and a third for dozens and some. You with a couple. Oh, wow. 100 or more. That's amazing. So I'm looking forward to hearing a lot from you. Ryder Farms tablet. None at all. Interesting. Yeah, so we're going to touch a little. This isn't about writing a program, but we're going to touch on that because I think that's an important piece of implementation, is making sure that the program in the first place is a good program, right? So when you're writing your own, one of the first things you're going to do is go through legislation, right? See which legislation applies to that specific program. So in the Act and Regs, really there's very little in terms of incident investigation in general, unless we're talking specifically about a critical injury, right? But I think that some of that stuff could be a best practice for more than just a critical injury, perhaps, right? And we'll talk about that. But in the Act, we've got that the worker rep is given the opportunity to inspect the place and any machine, device, or thing where the accident occurred. Isn't it strange how in the Green Book they still use the word accident? All the rest of us are past that. Why have they still got that in the law, right? Anyway, and then in the notices and reports regulation, it really kind of breaks down what needs to be reported. You need the nature of the injury, the nature and circumstances of the occurrence, including a description of any equipment and or process procedure related. So that's really kind of implying that you've done some investigation to understand the nature of the occurrence, right? We move to standards, look at CSA Z1005, the Incident Investigation Standard. Section 6 is all about conducting the actual investigation, and it talks about making sure the investigator is competent before they begin any sort of investigation. It talks about managing the scene, right? Collecting your data, doing your analysis, coming up with findings, very high level. Or you could look at CORE, which the benefit of looking at CORE is it's free whether or not you're using it, right? But 5.10 is all about investigations and reporting. And again, it talks about making sure that the investigator is trained in investigation, right? It talks about determining your deficiencies related to health and safety and the root causes, and making sure you put corrective actions in place. Right? And then a few websites to look to, the guidelines. First of all, the ministry has very little in relation to incident investigation. When I search up incident investigation on the Ontario website, I only found one small guideline. It was actually specific to school boards, specific to workplace violence. But that aside, it talks about the investigation should focus on root causes and measures to control the risk and prevent recurrence. And I think that stuff applies to any and all investigation. Now, we have how-to videos. We've got a investigation report template. This is all free on our site, by the way. We've got several articles. One of them I just want to highlight. Investigating non-critical injuries, tips to overcome 4 common challenges. And in particular, that article highlights collecting evidence at the scene, from the people, from relevant documents, right? And CCOHS has lots of good free resources as well. They got a really great infographic on incident investigation. They got a very thorough, detailed guideline that really includes when you collect the data, you group it by task, material, environment, personnel, and management, right? And to me, that's really just PEMEP. We're big fans of PEMEP here at WSPS, people, equipment, material, environment, process, but that's the way I've always traditionally done incident investigation, group my data into PEMEP, and then CCOHS talks about asking why to identify the root causes, and that's such an important concept when it comes to investigation, right? So lots of good stuff there. But basically, if you're writing your program, you're going to look at all these things, right? And try to include bits and pieces of all these best practices. Now, question for you. Have I missed anything here? If you're going to write an incident investigation program tomorrow, is there any other places you might look? Any other legislation, standards, or guidelines, or other best practices you might want to review and possibly even include in a written incident investigation program? Throw your answers in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. Sure, yes, nice, Chris. SDSs, if you're, well, that's, sorry, Chris, so perhaps you're talking about doing the investigation itself, right? If there's a hazardous material involved in the incident, we're going to look at the hazardous materials SDS. And you're not wrong, but right now I'm just talking about writing our written sort of policy procedure program, right? other industry procedures, see if we can adopt them. So yeah, especially if you're part of a larger, like a manufacturing association, or you're part of a chain of some kind, or there's a corporate sort of head office, they might have good stuff that you can sort of incorporate at your location or at your site. That's a good one. Yeah. Oh, very similar, Dave. Oh, for sure. Yes. Workplace safety insurance legislation in terms of how we're going to need to report to them. So I sort of thought of that as separate, full disclosure. But yeah, no, definitely you might want to consider that stuff for sure. Yeah, you've kind of covered all that. Any other corporate overarching procedures? Nice one, Jennifer. Love it. Or if you're implementing some other standard, if you are doing 45,001, you might want to look at what that standard says about investigations, for example, right? And yeah, perhaps I guess I sort of am separating reporting and dealing with the injury from the investigation itself, right? And I know many organizations don't do that. I know we say incident reporting and investigation, and it's one giant program, and we include the workplace safety insurance stuff. We include Reg 1101, the first aid requirements, and having first aid provided to the injured worker, all of that stuff, right? But I'm sort of kind of perhaps maybe just narrowing it a bit to just really focus in on investigation. Those are covered in other programs, our return to work, our first aid, our all that stuff would be maybe perhaps separate programs. So now we can go through, our program, our procedure, our blueprint, to use that language. And I'm not going to go through all the details. I'm sure many of you are familiar. Of course, the one person, what was it? Ryder Farms, right? 100+ programs. I'm sure you have great headings to look at and look through, right? But yeah, let's just focus in on the basic pieces of a procedure. I'm just going to put a simple one up, and that'll be kind of what we will flow through as we go through this morning. So perhaps step one is the supervisor is going to assess the risk related to the incident. If it's low, they're going to collect evidence from the scene and speak to the injured worker. If it's medium or high, now they're going to involve a worker rep. And in addition to collecting evidence from the scene and the injured worker, they're going to interview maybe any other relevant people, review any other documents and records, such as SDSs, as one of you mentioned in the chat, right? But I do think that your investigation should be based on risk in terms of how much time you're going to spend and how much effort you're going to put into gathering that evidence, right? Maybe step two, regardless of whether it was low or medium, is to create a sequence of events, group your evidence into PEMEP, find all the causes, right? And step three is to come up with corrective actions, complete your report, and share it with whoever it needs to be shared with. So very simple process here that will kind of take through all of this. Now, if you don't want to go through all this writing your own program, right, there are other options. You should definitely consider the Health and Safety Excellence Program, HSEP. We are, of course, a provider and sponsor of that. There are other providers, but I would invite you to look carefully at the pricing structures. Other providers may look cheaper than us, but then they take a bigger cut of what the rebate program is that comes back from the WSIB, right? If you've never heard of HSEP, well, actually, let me ask. Is anyone in here registered in HSEP right now? Throw one in the chat if you have HSEP currently in place at your organization, or you've had it within the last year or two. You've done something in HSEP. Yes, big ups, Chris, Steve, nice. Chris and Steve will tell you that the beauty of HSEP is it's all stuff you're supposed to be doing anyway, and you get money back in your pocket for doing it, right? From a very high level, you basically tell the WSIB through your sponsor, hey, this is what we want to do, and you can do as many as 5 things in a single year. A year, you can start it at any time in the calendar year, and then you have exactly 12 months from that day to get it done. And then when you prove to them via your sponsor that you have it in place, they give you a huge rebate check back. And it always pays for itself in spades compared to what you paid to register in it, right? It's all based on your premiums you pay and everything like that, and the size of your payroll and all of that. But it is definitely something worth looking into, because if you are a part of it, you get a health and safety professional from our organization helping you put the pieces in place, giving you templates that you can use to build that written program if you don't have any written program at all, giving you suggestions on training, helping you with implementation, really kind of coaching you and meeting with you regularly throughout the process to make sure you're on track and to help you. You still got to do all the work, unfortunately, but you have that, that resource to help you. And then we also have building blocks. So this is a fairly new thing. It's been in place less than 6 months, but we have 30 plus health and safety related topics, and we can customize them for your organization using your terminology, and really scale them to any size you need them to be scaled to. We can just give you the program, or we can help you with the training as well. We can help you with the implementation or help you with the evaluation. So there are different elements you can, purchase in terms of consulting from us. So that's another potential avenue to go into. If you just want someone to write the program for you, you don't want to do all that legwork, you could look into that. Regardless of where you get the program, the blueprint, whether you make it yourself, whether you enroll in HSTEP and get a template and modify it, or you have us build you one out through our Building Blocks program, what do you need to ensure is customized? What are some of the elements in a written program that need to be tailored to your specific organization? Go ahead and throw some of those thoughts in the chat. The question again, what should be possibly tailored? Yes, I guess to some extent. Well, the regulations for sure, right? If you're a construction organization versus a manufacturing organization, right? Very different, 851 versus 213. Yes. Thank you, Anne. What else needs to be customized? Yeah, roles, responsibilities. Like if you don't use the terminology of supervisor, and the blueprint you bought says supervisor this, supervisor that, supervisor, then it doesn't make any sense for your organization, right? What your, systems are. Good one, Regan. The resources within that industry, for sure, Ira. So, different equipment and materials that you might be working with and/or handling. Right? Yeah, your own risk registry, your own HIRA, your risk analysis, how you calculate risk if you're going to build that into your incident investigation, which I highly recommend you do, right? And what the implementation plan looks like, for sure. Tying it to any strategic plans or priorities. Nice one, Melissa. Other corporate policies. Yeah, health and safety is not an add-on, right, Melissa? And we all know that. We need to integrate it into everything we do. And the only way to do that is make sure things are all sort of interrelated. Right? Nice one there. So just a few thoughts I have in addition to those. We already mentioned sort of the organizational structure, your own capacity. If you have, some people that might be responsible or champions within that blueprint, that program, that maybe have English as a second language or have reading comprehension issues, you need to consider that when you're writing your program, right? Or if they don't have the tools they need to carry out whatever those responsibilities are, and that could be something as simple as a tape measure or caution tape or something like that, to access to, if you have some sort of digital tool, right? Do they have easy access to that digital tool to do the report form or whatever, right? And we mentioned already your own infrastructure, your own equipment. So making sure that that blueprint, regardless of where you get it, is customized and tailored to your organization is a must for sure. All right, that was all step one in that first part of review the blueprint. Now, we want to share it with any and all involved trades. So we're going to identify the champions that we need, and then we're going to consider any and all accessibility of those champions of that blueprint. So making sure you sort of capture who's going to be involved in this, who's going to have any kind of responsibilities, right? And thinking about, are they going to be able to access and understand this written program? All right, another poll. really an IRS pull. So, are you sort of an arm of the employer, which is what I think of when I think of HR, health and safety, or an owner or senior leader? Are you an arm of the supervisor, so anybody from a director down to lead hand, or are you a worker? Responses streaming in. So the vast majority on the employer side of the IRS, 2/3, which is kind of, easy to understand when we saw the ones in terms of who is a health and safety practitioner within here. Very cool. So bring your own thoughts for it in terms of if your arm of the internal responsibility system is a champion in whatever the program is you're writing, how do you ensure that we've identified those champions? And the easy way to do that is you look at the written program in the responsibility section or in the procedure section, and what does it say? If it says supervisors do this, well, you've got your managers and supervisors. It says the worker committee member does this, well, we've got the worker committee members, right? It says the health and safety has to do that, or HR does this, right? Those are your champions, right? Whatever your written program is about, whatever it says in the responsibilities and or the procedure. So how would you actually share it with them? Have you ever struggled to try and share a blueprint, a written program, with a particular arm of the internal responsibility system? Go ahead, throw that in the chat. If you've ever had difficulty trying to show, I'm not talking about the buy-in piece, I'm just talking about getting it in front of them, showing them, hey, this is what we have in the pipeline, this is what we're considering doing, we have this great draft written program, we'd like you to review it, we'd like you to take a look at it. Ever struggled to reach any of those? Really, committee, that's interesting. Senior management, yeah, often have a lot of priorities, right, Mahesh? So it's hard to get something in front of them, perhaps, sure. Any and all managers making sure they have time to review the draft can be difficult for sure, Melissa. Hard to get anyone's attention. Yes, Candice. Get told it's too long. Yeah. We write these huge, long written programs, 20 pages, right, Melissa, for sure. Direct contact or email. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, Chris. You get the buy-in, but they didn't actually buy in. They're just like, yeah, I'll sign it. Yeah, what do you need me to say? Yeah? Okay, I'm in. Yeah, for sure, Leah. I think many safety professionals can relate to that, right? And they don't really know what they're have agreed to or signing off on or saying they're going to do or take onto their role, right? Oh, union leadership, interesting. Site specific, yeah, when you have a multi-state organization, perhaps, it can be difficult. One particular site may not be as good or have someone that's as passionate that's going to engage with whatever your language is, right? Sure. So let's talk a little bit about accessibility. So before we share it, we've identified the people. Now we need to make sure that it's going to be accessible for all of them, right? So whenever you're writing anything, even if it is a technical document or a procedural document like a written program is, we don't want to include any jargon, as minimal acronyms as possible. Like, well, that's what we call it. Yeah, but they're not safety geeks like you and I, the people perhaps reading the written program, right? So if you can abstain from those acronyms, leave them off the table, right? And high readability. There's something in Word, I don't know if you use Word as your writing tool of choice, but there's something called the editor, and you're clicking on the document stats, and it'll tell you your flesh reading score. And that score is really how easy it is to read this document. And really, to improve the score, you just need shorter sentences, shorter words, right? Words with less than 3 syllables are key, right? And often you can synonym this giant word that makes you think you're really smart with something much more plain and much more straightforward, right? It makes it faster to read, right? And if you've already got a 20-page document, we want to make this thing as fast and as easy to read as possible for people, right? So whatever you can do to do that and improve that, I would invite you to do that, you know. And now we're going to actually share it, right? Give it to those champions, whoever has any specific responsibilities, in some way, shape, or form, right? I think it was Chris that was talking about emailing or directly contacting. But how could you get that document in front of whoever the champions are that are going to be affected or going to have some role within it? What are some options available to us? We've got email. We've got, I guess, direct. Does that mean go to the committee meeting and give it to the committee, perhaps? How else could you share it? How else could you make sure that the champion's eyes get on this blueprint that you've taken the time to draft? Okay, so like inter-office mail or put it in their sort of pigeonhole or whatever that might look like at your organization? Sure, Chris. Actually print it yourself and put a copy in everybody's mailbox. Yeah, it's like you have no excuse. I printed it for you. It's there. It's in your mailbox. Great. Yeah, if you have an intranet or some sort of shared drive. Yeah, to some extent training. We're going to talk more about training, but right now we just have a draft blueprint, a draft program. And I'm talking about before we even worry about training, let's get eyes on this draft, right? Weekly meetings, using any sort of internal system. Yeah, so that's a great way, Candice, using like track changes or giving people multiple editing rights. Awesome, right? Because that's really kind of the goal, right, with this blueprint and sharing the draft, right? We want to get people's eyes on it and give them the opportunity to point out any flaws with it, point out any concerns with it, point out any issues, any things that any barriers to them being able to do whatever it is they're going to be asked to do, right? So when you share it, whether you email it, print it, you know, show it in a meeting, whatever that looks like, you need to say specifically, not just give me any feedback, but do you foresee any challenges when we push go on this? Do you foresee any barriers to you being able to do whatever the procedural elements are that you're going to have to do, or whatever the responsibilities are that you have within this program? Okay? What are some benefits of doing that? Why would we want to ask people if they believe there's any challenges to them putting the program in place? Oh, sorry, Jennifer, I missed that comment. That's a great one, though. Mini workshop, review and comment right in the workshop. I love it. Yeah, Chris, extra eyes, make sure that you get full perspective, you get that sort of 360, because when you're writing it, you know what you mean, right? You often miss things because you have partially in your head what you're talking about, right? Whereas a third party doesn't know what you mean. They're just reading your document, right? And yeah, there might be a disconnect perhaps, right? To actually how it will take place or how you'll be able to do it when it's on the floor. Nice one here. Yeah, it gets that engagement, Candice. Make sure you get feedback on that. Yes, Leah, it does create better buy-in, right? Because if someone asks me, hey, what do you think of this? We're thinking of doing this. And I say, ooh, I don't like that. Or I think this needs to change to this. Now I have some ownership in it, right? I have some stake in that game, right? Now there's buy-in going to be created automatically because you asked me for my thoughts and I'm freely bringing them, right? For sure. Is it actually the way it is? For sure. Better planning when we do get to the rollout. Love it. All great ideas. Make sure you align your objectives. And yeah, for sure. If it is something where there's monitoring or enforcement or evaluation required by that particular champion, we need to make sure they understand, hey, you're going to be doing this, right? To do that. Nice one, Candice. Yes, absolutely, Dave. That's what I'm talking about. It creates that ownership. So this is a great way to create buy-in. And we often miss this as safety people. Like, yep, here's the program. We're going to push go on it, or we already did push go. It's in place, right? That's another big issue. We'll talk about that in a second. But this is a great thing to do to sort of create that buy-in. Yes, Chris, love it. You're willing to listen, right? You can trust me. I want to take your thoughts into account. I want to make sure that you're able to do whatever the program is requiring you to do. If it requires you to, secure the scene via caution tape and pylons, and you say, my department doesn't have any caution tape or pylons, okay, right? Let's solve that issue, right? And what's great about this is, especially if you do it in a large group, or if you do it where everyone can see the track changes or the comments, right? Or you share those challenges with everybody that as they come in, you don't have to solve them on your own, right? You can say, hey, this Department X doesn't have any pylons or caution tape. How can we solve this issue? And Department Y, who's right beside them, says, well, we can put it in a drawer that's right beside their department, so we can both share it, right? Unlikely we'll both be managing an incident scene at the same time, so maybe that's a workaround until they are able to purchase one as part of their budget process or whatever, right? Yeah, so it's going to create that collaboration, going to create that ownership, and ultimately it's going to improve the program, right? Especially all those comments all of you have made about making sure this actually works on the floor, right? Yeah, so, yeah, you have to pitch it to them the way I'm pitching it to you here, that management needs to understand that, especially that ownership piece, right? If you show a draft program to those champions and actually ask them, do you have any issues, do you have any concerns with this, right? That is creating that ownership. That's going to create the engagement we need, ultimately, when we eventually launch the program. Another quick poll. What is the state of your current incident investigation program? Is it a masterpiece? I'm just talking about your written program. Is it in great shape? You're still reducing some risks? Does it need some improvement? Not always figuring out all the causes. Maybe you don't have a program at all. That's why you came to the Safety Connection. One person, no program at all. A couple of people. Interesting. So nobody would call your program a masterpiece. That's interesting as well. As one person in here said they've written 100 plus programs. Don't think your incident investigation program is a masterpiece, though. Very interesting. Almost half in the B realm, solid effort. A little less than half on needs improvement. So these are some tips. You can still go through these things, even if you have a written program in place. Say, we're considering revising this. What are your current challenges with our current program, right? You can kind of go back, start at the beginning, but use your current program as the quote-unquote draft program, right? And those might be some suggestions to help improve the program itself before you get to the rollout, right? Okay, so that was review the blueprints. Now we need to train all the trades on the program, right? So we're going to identify our training needs and outcomes. We're going to figure out how we're going to assess our different participants, and then we're going to build the training and deliver it, right? So let's talk about needs and outcomes first. This is often missed by health and safety practitioners when it comes to building training, right? We go from topic to creating the training. The training needs to include all of this because this is what the topic is, right? That's not the proper way to build training, right? First things first, what are your needs? And a very simple way to do that, go through the different procedure items within the blueprint, within the written program. What's the current state? What do you want the state to be? Right? So what do we have? What's optimal? There's your training requirement, that gap. How do we get from what we have to that optimal state? So for fun, let's say the first element, which was gathering evidence from the scene, interviewing people and going through over relevant documents and records. Currently, no one looks at any documents and records. So we do want them to review different documents and records, especially if it's a high-risk incident, right? So what's our training needs? We need to teach them which potential documents are out there you might want to consider reviewing as part of an investigation. Or if our next step was to group our evidence into PEMEP and do our 5Y analysis, maybe right now there's only a surface analysis happening. There's a single cause found as the main reason for this incident to occur. And we want a deeper analysis. We want multi-causation. We want to know what are all the contributing factors for this incident. So we need to do a better job of teaching the champions 5 whys, perhaps. Okay. Or maybe we got very, very shallow corrective actions. Man, where I worked before, if I had a nickel for every corrective action as retrained worker, right? Or told worker to be more careful. That's always the worst. Told worker to be more careful, really? Do you honestly think that's a tangible, preventative measure? I don't know, right? So maybe we want improved actions, so we want to show how 5 whys ties into actions, and it's pretty self-evident if someone understands that 5 why process, right? So there's our training needs. We need to show them different documents, we need to teach them 5 whys, and we need to show them how 5 whys can lead to better corrective actions. So we've done our needs. Now we need to write our outcomes. We need to figure out what does it look like when participants are finished this training. And this step is often missed as well by health and safety professionals. And there's a very simple tool to use to make sure you have tangible outcomes that you can actually measure against, and that's something called Bloom's taxonomy. So Bloom was this genius guy, and this is used all over learning, development, education. But he came up with this sort of staircase of learning, starting with sort of remember at the bottom and going all the way up to create in terms of how you need to be able to work with or use whatever the knowledge, skills, abilities are that you're sort of showing that to that participant, right? So whatever your Bloom verb is, and you could Google image search Bloom's taxonomy, there's synonyms for all these steps. If you don't like remember, there's all sorts of different words you could use. And then for each of your goals, and your training should not have more than 4, 5 on the outside. Even 5 is pushing it, If you got 4 goals, 4 outcomes, that's sort of the sweet spot, 3 to 4. If you have 5, I almost would say you might want to consider breaking that training up. Have one day that has a 3 objective training and another day with a 2 objective training, right? So for our program, maybe we want the participants to be able to outline which potential documents and records they might want to review in a high-risk incident investigation. We want them to be able to demonstrate 5 whys. We want them to be able to connect actions to causes, right? So you can see how we've kind of stepped up the staircase with each of those. And that's another important concept, that you start with the easiest thing in your learning outcomes, right? Whatever the simplest, lowest tier verb is, that's your first Bloom verb, right? And then as you step up the staircase, you'll put those higher and higher learning thoughts into it, right? So why is it so important to design our outcomes before we start building our training? Why go with the outcomes first? Any thoughts on that? Why do you want to have your outcomes before you build the training? Absolutely here. Have a clear goal in mind. Yeah, it really does create a plan, Mahesh, that you can follow then, right? You know your destination. I love that metaphor, Melissa, right? We're on this journey together. We know where to get to. Now we just got to figure out how to get there, right? Sets your learning path. Yes, Jennifer, similar. Keeps us on track. Love it. Nice. I think back to my early training because I love creating training and building presentations and stuff like that. And some of my, early competent manager training, I'll never forget one that had incident investigation as part of it. And I had just taken some, advanced accident theory course as part of my advanced safety certificate. And I wanted to teach that to all the managers. I went over the Reason model, the Swiss cheese model. I went over, the old Heinrich model, even though we don't use that anymore. I went over Bird's loss prevention model. And then I went over Peterson's multi-causation model, ball energy model. Like, I'm talking to my boss afterwards, and she's like, why'd you have to show us 8 different models of how accidents happen? And I thought about it, and I was like, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. She's like, you think it's interesting as a safety practitioner. None of us care, right? It doesn't matter for us. If you wanted to show one, right? You didn't need to show 8, right? But if I'd have created my outcomes first, I would have realized these other models or any of these models are not important for the safety training. They don't need to know that stuff, right? That's not going to be helpful, right? For sure, Quinlan. Yeah, so making sure that you can measure and make sure that when you get through that training, that you've achieved that goal. Right? So now, how are we going to assess participants? How are we going to know if they've actually learned something in the training we've created? This is the next step in building training. People often design their training and then figure out how to assess it. Yeah, that's not really proper, right? We want to make sure that we have our need, we create our outcomes, we figure out how we're going to assess those participants or evaluate those participants. Make sure that there was a transfer of knowledge, right? And you do that by looking at what levels of that Bloom's taxonomy you're using as part of your outcomes, right? If you're down at the lower tier, maybe you can use simple multiple choice or a true-false quiz, right? As you creep up, though, now it becomes more and more involved, right? And I think that most health and safety related programs we want apply, right? It's not just remember this stuff. We want you to be able to do this in your particular scenario, in your particular situation, right? So simulations, tabletops, demonstrations, that's really a better place to assess participants. I'm not talking about actually having to assign them a score, but making sure that they have that feeling of doing that, right? Being part of that simulation and seeing what it's like in the moment, right? In a safe place, right? So why are we doing the assessment before the design? We talked about why we want to build the outcomes before the design. We've got that roadmap. Why do we want to figure out how we're going to evaluate if there's a transfer of knowledge, of skills, of abilities? Why do we want to make sure we know if they're going to learn it? Yeah, absolutely. It's going to inform our design, for sure. Yeah, you could do a questionnaire to figure out their current knowledge. That's part of the needs, perhaps, right? Any skills gaps. Yeah, it helps with proper application, right? It helps to make sure that we're going to highlight those important points, right? Whatever our outcomes are going to be. Yeah, helps to really flesh out what needs to be included. Because when you have a single outcome, there might be several things you want to talk about to achieve that outcome. But if now you create your assessment, now you know, well, maybe I don't need all 4 of these things. I only need these 2 because they are going to be assessed. I'm going to figure out how the participant knows or understands or applies these 2 things, right? Yeah, it makes it more accessible. Thank you, Mahesh. Yeah, so that comes back to the needs, though, right, Kira? Making sure that we know if there is any current state related to this program, right? So your workforce, you give a lot of newer champions in whatever your program entails, then you're in your needs assessment, you're going to see they don't currently do anything, and that might inform a different way of training or a larger training, right? Yeah, now we can prioritize what's important in the training. Absolutely, right? We only have so long, We can't put everything under the sun into this training. So we want to make sure it's customized to exactly what we're going to assess them on, right? And now we can start to build that training and then deliver it, right? I'm sure you've all been in some engaging training or in some not so engaging training. What is the difference in those things? What makes training more interesting? What makes people want to engage with training? Any thoughts on that? When is training the most effective, the most engaging? Yeah, when we involve the participants, nice one. More interaction, love it. Bringing on that hands-on experience, making sure people share experiences, great, for sure. Yeah, it's got to be relatable. Absolutely, Hira. If this training doesn't apply, I don't know if the participants can be even interested in it at all, right? Yeah, letting everybody participate in the discussion and making it accessible for them to participate in that discussion. Love it, Kim, by sharing their own life experience, right? It doesn't always have to be, a theoretical, classroom discussion, right? Let's keep it basic. Yes, for sure, Lindsay. We got Tim Hortons coffee. We got donuts, right? Come on out. Come and eat some food. We're going to have a hot lunch if you participate in this training, for sure. Evidently, you have a bigger health and safety budget than I did. Yeah, bringing in real life situations, making sure it's current, for sure. Yeah. Nice. Candace concurring with you, Lindsay. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of that stuff is sort of highlighting some basic adult learning principles. And I thought long and hard about what I was going to put into this safety connection about developing and delivering training. Should I talk about adult learning principles? Should I talk about, how the different ways people learn? And, I decided, there's just one thing that I want to mention. And that is Dale's Cone of Learning, or it's also called Dale's Cone of Experience. Edgar Dale came up with this over 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago, 30s, I think. And we still have not learned from this concept. But, people have proven that the percentages are not quite accurate. But regardless of those percentages, whether they're accurate or not, as you go down this, as training becomes more and more active and people are more and more involved, the better they learn it. That's a neuroscience fact. The more we can interact with new material we're learning, the better we're going to be able to learn that material. And so if you just stand up at the front and speak, people are going to learn very little of that. Or if you speak and you give them some bullet points to read, still, we're only getting a little bit more. Right now, if we have some interesting visuals, some imagery, a nice slide deck, or a video for them to watch, or an e-learning with lots of interactivity, now we get a little bit more. Right? Now, if they can see it actually demonstrated, a little more. Now, if they can actually participate, they can actually be part of the conversation. A little more, almost half now. Now we're getting more and more active, right? But the kind of the key area that I would suggest you try and strive for is, can they actually do this in a safe environment? Can they actually practice whatever it is you're trying to show them or teach them? That's when we get a lot of engagement and a lot of learning taking place. Yeah, so that's what I was saying, Anne, is that the percentages have been disproven, but I think the concept of the ratio holds true, right? It's like Bird's pyramid, the accident ratio, right? We all disproved the numbers years ago, but we still like to look at that pyramid, still think of it, right? And whether, the pyramid is narrower or fatter, this ratio definitely holds true. It's a neuroscience fact that the more you interact with material, the more you are active when you're learning it, the better chance it is of creating those new synapses, creating those new, neural pathways and learning that material. Right? Absolutely, Chris. Right? Now we've got that assessment part done if we're just going to do it by doing, for sure. Right? So let me ask you very specifically, for incident investigation training, have you ever used simulations and or mock exercises? Yeah, sorry, Mahesh, I was just seeing that. Yeah, technological advances have changed the way we learn and absorb material. Absolutely. Yeah. Need to be a part of it now. For sure. So half saying sometimes. Okay. A small handful saying always. Interesting. 3 saying always. Many saying rarely. Many saying never. This is going to change the game for you. I'm telling you right now. You don't have to, you can. I mean, you can get a mannequin, you can put a broken ladder and put the mannequin lying on the floor and, give witnesses prepared statements. People will love that, by the way. But you don't have to go to that level. You can still create a mock investigation on paper, right? Pictures on paper and sentences of what witnesses have said or whatever. You can do it all on paper. When it comes to incident investigation. That is almost as effective as actually having a real life scene that people have to go and look at. But, either of those is going to be way better than you standing up in front of the best presentation, the best slide deck in the world and lecturing on, or even having some Socratic discussion and letting them be part of that discussion, having them actually do. Oh man, that is really, it's amazing when you see that happen. What I used to do is I have table groups, and I'd give sort of a prize to the table group that found the most causes, right? Or found the best preventive measures, the best corrective actions, right? Yeah, you're not wrong, Melissa. Yeah, it does take time if you want to do a simulation, for sure. But, you could almost do it with no theory, right? And the learning will happen in the moment, and you can add in pieces of the learning as they're doing the simulation. It's not like you need to stand up and deliver, an hour of PowerPoint slides and then do the simulation. You can just go right into the simulation. The learning will happen in the moment, right? So I do think that it may end up being the same amount of time as sort of a presentation style training, right? Yeah, everybody loves those, Mahesh. Even safety people. Going to see something where you can mock and you get to sort of flex your skills. We all love doing that, I think, right? Yeah, and Chris concurring with you, Melissa. It is a difficult thing, but if you have a certain time allotment, I would say you've got an hour to do the training. I would say make it all a simulation versus creating any presentation at all, right? Spend the hour in an actual mock simulation. I'll bet you there will be way more learning taking place. Okay? Yeah, absolutely, Kim. You could build it into emergency preparedness for sure. Yeah. Okay, now we're into our third arm, the oversight arm. Build and monitor the construction. So we're going to schedule a start date. We're going to begin. And then as we start building the home, we're going to monitor the construction and then adjust as needed. So, scheduling a start date. You want to make sure, first of all, it's a clear calendar date. Right? And I think many of us miss this opportunity. We say, okay, this is the new program. It's already in place. It was signed off yesterday. It was dated for yesterday. It's in place right now. You're like, what? Wait a minute. Look, it says I've got to do X, Y, Z. And I haven't had any training on X, Y, Z yet, right? But if you say, this is the draft, we plan on starting it June 1st, 2025, right? So set a specific date. Not, we plan on starting it in 2 weeks, or we plan on starting it in late autumn, or whatever, right? Very specific calendar date. And you want to sort of aim to have a sort of a percentage of those champions trained before that launch date, right? So if the date is June 1st, and we have, let's say, 100 champions that we've identified that all need different training, what would make sense in terms of how many should be completed the training before that launch date? You had 100 supervisors you were going to teach incident investigation to. Whatever that looks like for you in terms of your different training program or rollouts or classes or courses or whatever, what would you expect would be a safe number to have that competency before you push go on that new program? Interesting, Regan. 90%? One thought? Sure. At least 60? Interesting, Hira. Any other thoughts, one way or the other? I'm genuinely curious. I think the key, yes, that's the one. I'm glad you brought that up, Maksud. The key is don't make it 100. Okay? Because someone's going to miss the course. Someone's going to, have something else come up. And then now you're sitting at 99. One person needs to take the training, and now you got to push the date back. Everybody else is ready to go, right? So I think 100 is not really a safe place to be. As much as we want that, it could delay us actually implementing this program. Okay? So I think anywhere between, more than 50 and less than 100 is safe, right? But 30% success rate, do you mean the participant's successful in the assessment of the training? Which hopefully, if you have really good interactive training, the assessment will show itself in spades. I do think you want at least half, but that's an interesting thought. Less, just like a third. It could work if you have a third. I guess it really depends on your org structure and how the champions are set up, right? If there is, a way for something, if it was incident investigation as an example, and there was a way within each sort of department to at least have one champion trained, then that might sort of gauge a lower sort of training participation rate, right? Because at least one person can do it if an incident occurs, right? Maybe then 1 in 3 would work, right? Yeah, Hira. Always better to aim low. Yeah, well, that's your aim perhaps for 100. Absolutely, Chris. But we should, I guess my question is, would we push back the date if we didn't get a certain number, right? And so you've really made me rethink it, Candace, in terms of a 1 in 3. And I guess it could potentially work, right? Okay, I got you now. The overall goal of the program, training specific. Okay, so now we can actually begin our build, right? So we want to have a kickoff meeting. We want to invite any last minute concerns. Like, we want to celebrate the launch of this. There's a reason why, when people open buildings, they use the big golden scissors and cut the ribbon, or they put the golden shovel in the ground, right? We want everybody to celebrate and know that, hey, this great program that you helped us fix and make sure would work for you, and you took the training in, is now launching today, right? You can do that with a meeting. You can do that with an all-staff email, right? Whatever that looks like for your organization, but celebrate that you've started that program. And you can invite any last-minute concerns. Hopefully there is none, because you did such a good job of sharing the draft program with all those champions before you even sort of solidified that program and built the training on it. But it's just a nice to have. Right? It's just something else to encourage that ownership, encourage that buy-in, right? Any other concerns, anything we missed? Maybe once the program kicks off, maybe there was something that nobody really thought of, right? It's an open door here. We can still possibly change and fix this program. So if you have any thoughts, bring them to me, right? All right, one more poll talking about, the check and act and plan, do, check, act, talking about the monitoring, the evaluation of any program or incident investigation specifically. How important is it that you monitor your written program after you've launched it? So many safety people in the room. I was curious what the responses would be on this one. And it's looking like we have some consensus here. Bunch of safety geeks in the room. Everybody's saying A. Everybody's saying foundational. Oh, one person saying, well, not quite foundational. Okay, that's fine. 96% saying it is a foundational element, and it definitely is, right? I think that there's really two pieces here. There's the written program itself, and then the training and the launch, right? Were those pieces successful, right? So let's talk about what you want to check and how you can check it. High level. I'm not going to, this isn't an auditing course, right? From a high level, basically there's three things you're checking with any program. One, are we doing it? Are report forms being completed? We're talking about incident investigation, right? Are there causes written in the box that says causal factors or contributing factors or whatever your report form looks like, right? Two, are we actually effective at it? Are we doing it well? So if it's incident investigation, are we coming up with good corrective actions? It's one thing to have the report forms completed, but it's another if they all say retrained worker, right? And then three, is it actually giving us the results we want? So again, with incident investigation, are we actually reducing risk based on these corrective actions? Are they helping to put better controls in place than what we already had for these hazards that are creating these incidents? So how would you check those things? Those incident investigations specifically, what are some thoughts on how we could see if those things were actually happening? Investigations were happening. Good investigations were happening. Good investigations creating actually good corrective actions and reduction of risk were happening. Any thoughts? What are some ways we could monitor our incident investigation program? Yeah, we could review incident reports, how well they're being completed. Metrics, so data and metrics. So if you are, categorizing things on your incident report form and then using that to calibrate numbers, KPIs, sure, yeah. Trends in incidents, Chris, is that what you're saying? First aid reports and WSIB claims. So if there are incident trends, and we know that investigations are not effective, maybe that's what you're saying, because they're recurring or the risk isn't being reduced enough, sure. Yeah, more data collection from reporting tools. Yeah, there is lots and lots of ways to monitor, and many of us go right to stats and metrics, especially if you have very cool digital tools that can spit out that stuff. You've got a cool dashboard that shows you all these percentages and numbers, right? But there's low-tech ways too, right? You know what? Hey, you're going to do an incident investigation. I'm just going to tag along. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to watch you do it, right? Or you just talk to the champions that have that responsibility. What did you think of the last, if you get an incident report from so-and-so supervisor, you call them up. Tell me what it was like, Tell me how it went for you, how you felt, right? So there's lots and lots of ways to sort of check to make sure that the program is going well, whatever your program is, in this case, incident investigation, right? And then the final step is to adjust our construction or our blueprint as needed. And really, this is a sort of another why analysis, right? If no one's completing the forms, you can ask why. And there's a very cool human performance model called Rumler's human performance model. I don't know if anybody's heard of Rumler 2Ms. And he said that there are 6 reasons why we don't achieve optimal performance. Okay? 1, we don't have clear expectations. So maybe the written program doesn't clearly say that champion has to do a thorough 5 why root cause analysis. Right? Maybe we don't have the capacity, the inherent skill, ability, functions to be able to achieve whatever that performance is. Right? If the person has a difficult time reading English and now you thrust this technical document in front of them and say, hey, read this, you've got to do these things, right? That's going to be a difficult thing, right? Or if they don't have the caution tape we talked about, right? They don't have the capacity to manage the scene when it occurs, right? Are they competent? Are they trained? Do they actually know those skills, those techniques, the knowledge they need to achieve whatever it is we want them to do? Are we giving them regular feedback? Are they being coached if they just missed the mark by a bit? Are they being praised if they're doing it well? Right? Just wanted to say that was an awesome PEMF 5 Whys. I'd never seen such a fleshed out fishbone. Thank you for doing that, right? And this is sort of related, but are there consequences? Are they held into account if they don't do whatever their responsibilities or procedural requirements are? Or are they rewarded and recognized if they do? We can always sort of forget that stuff, the positive side of feedback and consequences. And the whole, catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar absolutely holds true in health and safety, right? Easy to hold the poor performers into account, but you will get way better traction with this program if you start recognizing and rewarding the people that are doing it well. Okay? Well, so-and-so did a good incident investigation report, and they got a $10 Tim card. But it doesn't even have to be monetary, right? Just recognizing them publicly if that's what they want, right? Making sure the consequences fit what they are interested in as a person. But that can be huge, right? And then, is there any system or organizational barriers? Is there anything that would interfere with that person being able to complete this? So a good example, and many of you sort of mentioned it in relation to training, but time. Do we give them the time to do a good, strong incident investigation in the first place? Okay? And if they don't have the time to do it, well, then what can we expect, right? And then are we actually doing it? Right? Are we doing it well? So maybe we don't have good causes found, good corrective actions are not being created. So we say, why? Again, we can apply Rumler's human performance model, those 6 things to that. Did we clarify the expectations? Do they have the capacity? And so on and so forth through each of those things. And then the third step, is it achieving the results we want? So if recurrences are still happening, we're not actually reducing risk, but we do have good causal factors found. Maybe we don't have that link between the causal factors and the corrective actions. But again, we can apply that Rumler model, right? Which of those 6 things is the issue here, right? Okay, we're wrapping up here, but is there any questions to any of this stuff? I'm going to review it in a second, but I should have said at the outset, throw any questions in the chat you have for me. I'm happy to answer them as we go through, but here we are at the end. Anybody have any questions about any of the stuff we've talked about? Any thoughts about the written program, about the training piece, or about the oversight piece? Any questions at all? Oh, thank you, Candace, for attending. All right. So, feel free to throw some in the chat if you have any, but remember, we can help. Lots of free resources and tools on our site. There's all sorts of complimentary, in-kind, sort of prepaid, I guess is the language we're using, consulting we can do for you. So reach out to anybody at WSPS so we can talk about that. We do all sorts of training, look at the excellence program. Yeah, and Chris, that's an interesting point. The actual root cause hasn't been found, which leads to repeated occurrences. And I think that comes back to that iterative why analysis, right? Which is the simplest way, I think, to teach people how to look for those root causes, right? And explaining them that there's multiple causes generally, and they're not always at the bottom of the 5 why analysis, right? Okay, let's recap. So my key sort of core message, implementation success is built on the bricks of preparation, competence, and oversight. So what does that look like? We're going to review the blueprints, train all the trades, and build and monitor our construction, right? So review the blueprints. We're talking about establishing a customized blueprint, sharing that blueprint with any and all champions or trades, the draft of the blueprint, actually soliciting feedback on any challenges and then solutions to those challenges, putting that out to those champions as well, right? Now we can start training the trades by, first of all, identifying what are our needs and outcomes of this training, determining how we're going to assess our participants to ensure they've learned that stuff, and then developing and delivering interactive training. Right? On to building and monitoring our construction. We're going to schedule a start date, put the golden shovel in the ground, push go, celebrate, begin construction, right? We're going to monitor that construction as we build, and we're going to adjust the construction as needed, right? Hey, who put the USPS logo on the back of my dream house? So those are the steps to implementation success. So over to you. What's one thing you heard today that you are going to commit to doing? You are going to commit to starting back at your organization. Tell me in the chat one thing you heard that really captivated you. Nice one, Dee. I love it. Food at the training. Well, at least you got something out of this training. Anybody else? One thing you heard today that you are going to kick off at your own organization? Love to hear. What captivated you? What interested you? What did you make a small jot note on, perhaps? Yeah, pushing for the champions to review the draft and provide feedback. Nice one, Hira. Making sure you revise site-specific work instruction. Nice. Reviewing your current programs. Yeah, and you can use this template, this formula for current programs as well, Mahesh. Nice one. Having confirmed locked-in dates. Love it, Candice. Looking at your own incident process and perhaps injecting any of these tips. Thank you, Leah. Pushing back when needed. Yes, Candice. Love it. Interactive training, not just incident reporting. Lots of health and safety training can have interactive training, for sure. Troubleshooting your performance issues. Yeah, Rumler model, Regan. Look at it. It's really cool. Doing mock investigations. Thank you, Natasha. Looking at your current program, possibly reviewing it. More review. Thank you. Love it. Awesome. I'm so excited for all of you. Okay. We've come to the end. In Anishinaabe, we say miigwech and Bama-pi, which is Anishinaabe for until next time. I'm happy to chat with you about any of the stuff we've talked about here. If you want to jot down my email, feel free to reach out, ask any questions. I'm also on LinkedIn. But yeah, have a look at our website too. We have lots and lots of cool tools, lots of free resources available to you.